What's up everybody, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 9 and how it runs on the Switch 2. First we're going to talk about how it physically runs on the Switch 2, then we're going to talk about the game itself, because this is also kind of going to be my thoughts on the game, so let's dive into it. So we gotta talk about how it runs on the Switch 2, and I went over this on my Resident Evil section on my last video, which talked about the Switch 2's power. Point is, this game was literally like the spotlight of how good the Switch 2's power is. It runs incredible, and that's about it. Like, it's amazing, it looks incredible. If you want to hear me go into like more like power stuff of the Switch 2, check out my last video. But this game looks incredible. It uses the Switch 2's AI upscaling. It looks very similar, not completely as good, that's like impossible, but it does look very close to the PlayStation version. It's definitely up there with the Xbox Series S version. So, it looks incredible. Like, the lighting, the textures, the rain, the world, so good. Amazing. And yeah, it looks incredible. Into my thoughts on the actual game. Combat is interesting, to say the least. It depends who you're playing as. If you're playing as Leon, the combat is fantastic. It's not too easy, but man, it is fun to just blast through enemies in a very bloody way. But with Grace, the combat is very different. There really isn't much. If you run into a zombie with no other options to get away, you have to shoot it and kill it. But you don't really want to use bullets. It's not something you want to do, so a little iffy on the combat when you're playing with her. It can actually be stressful at times, because it's like, you can kind of feel helpless with your Grace, mainly because you probably don't even have the ammo. But combat with Leon's amazing. Combat with Grace, it's not really there, but it's not bad, when you're shooting these zombies. Now, I want to mention the worlds and environments, just kind of like how they look. Trying to keep spoilers very light here, but the first section, the hotel section, is really good. Obviously the game looks amazing, everything's gonna look amazing, but, you're in a hotel, and that first bad guy you see is definitely an interesting start, a good start to the gore, to say the least. And then the care center, which I would like to point out that I have not beat the game yet. I'll talk about the care center later, but the care center is good. It looks good. It's an interesting area. Just hotel was better, but especially when you're outside, which at least at the section I've played, you're not outside much. I spent most of my time in the care center, but whenever you are outside, you can it's just beautiful with such good graphics. So since the graphics are so high, it looks very beautiful when you're outside. Of course, it's dark and rainy and stormy all the time, but still looks great. I want to talk about the story. Now, there won't really be any spoilers, but it's very interesting of a story, because it's not necessarily hard to follow, but I have played a very large chunk of the game and still kind of don't know what's going on. I'm trying my best to figure it out, and I'm kind of supposed to be at this point, I'm not supposed to really understand it fully yet. It's just it is a little hard to follow, especially because I have not played any of the other Resident Evil games. After I play this one, though, I do plan to go and play 7 and 8. But I do have the physical right here. If you're interested, this is what it looks like. It does have inside box art, you can kind of see. Just thought I might show the physical, just in case you were interested. But yeah, good story, and you start in the hotel. One of my relatives is dead. I'm trying to keep very light spoilers, so it's a little hard to talk about it, but the main bad guy is intimidating, but not too scary, which I think is perfect for the main bad guy. Overall, the story is fine, but it is kind of hard to follow. It seems to be more focused on gameplay, and it does focus on the story, but kind of only the part you're at, which I know that sounds weird, but it's you have very detailed, long cutscenes that really only evolves around whatever the cutscene is about, and it very rarely adds to the overall story. So the story is very deep, but at least it's sometimes kind of hard to follow the overall larger story. I gotta talk about this Care Center section because it is very long of a section, and you play as Grace the whole time. It's big, and I'm not gonna lie, at first, because this is like one of the first sections you're put in, whenever it put me into the section, I was like, oh, I'm not really a big fan of this. I'm not gonna lie, I almost stopped playing because I was very overwhelmed because it's a very big building and so many random items. You could get an item and you're like, I have no clue how to use this. And I highly recommend that you just kind of keep pushing. If you felt like me, you like think, oh man, I think I just want to stop. I think you should just keep playing. And I think the reason that I changed my mind about it was that it was like I got more of an understanding of it. Like as I progressed, I found out what I needed the items for that I found earlier, I got more of the map unlocked, so I knew where things were, new features, more of an understanding on the combat, just like it all came to me as I kept going. So if you ever feel like a little overwhelmed at the beginning, that's normal. I recommend keep pushing, because once you start to connect the dots, you will feel a lot better. But this Care Center, man, it was crazy. First off, you only play as Grace the whole time, sorta. The main large section you play in, you play as Grace. You only play as Leon in like smaller sections. And Grace is fine, but like I said, the combat with Grace is kind of like, and here's like how I think of it, and it's kind of negative, but like, it seems like what you're supposed to do with Grace is basically stay stealth the whole time, except the map doesn't really feel like it's designed for stealth. There will be zombies completely blocking paths, and you have to get past them somehow, and you can't really stealthily do it, but it feels like you're supposed to, and because that conflict, I feel like it can get a little overwhelming. I think my main thing with this Care Center staying place was just, I was in there so long, and I wasn't going crazy to say, but like, I was feeling almost getting overwhelmed again, just because it was like the same stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm still having fun, so it was still good, all good. But the Care Center is definitely a interesting starting location. Before we go, I want to talk about Leon and Grace and how you play as both of them. So depending on what part of the story you're in, you play as either Leon or Grace, and I prefer Leon a lot more, but you play as him very little. So, at least in the section that I have played, it was basically like smaller sections with one giant section mixed in there. And like the smaller sections, it'd kind of be like Grace, Leon, and it wasn't that big of a deal because, I was spending about the same amount of time. But once I got to the big section, I was, playing with Grace, and that long in this giant section with like no break, and since I prefer Leon more, I was just really wanting some more fast-paced stuff, because you just play as Grace so long in this one building, and it's good. I had a good time. It just gets a little overwhelming at times, and I just wish that I played as Leon more. I wish it swapped more often, because the Leon sections are always small, and you have a few small Grace sections, but at least so far, all of the giant sections have been Grace, and Leon is still stuck to the small sections, which really sucks, because Leon is so much more fun to play as him because you just hack through the enemies. I also want to point out that you can play the game in either first person or third person, and you can pick which characters are for which camera angle. The game recommends to do first person with Grace and third person with Leon. I swapped that. You can settings, it doesn't really hurt you anyway, it's just whichever one you prefer. I did the complete opposite of what I recommended, and when I played with Leon, it was first person, Grace, third person. And the reason I did that is because I was thinking about it. I was like, if Grace is more for stealth, I feel like having more of a zoomed out camera would help with that, maybe see if I can turn the camera, get a better look at things. And if Leon's more action, then I feel like first person would be better to get, blood in the face, more like you're right there, right where, you attack. And I feel like, I don't know, I just kind of guessed it'd be better the way I did it, and I didn't try it the recommended way. I might have liked it more, but I also feel like that probably adds some replayability there, because, it really does change your experience. I could not imagine playing with Grace first person. It would feel so weird, because I'm so used to doing third person with her. So, very interesting. I'm going to let you choose that. That's going to wrap it up for today's video. If you've made it this far, you probably like my content. I talk about Switch 2, video games, Pokemon, all the time, so if you like that stuff, consider leaving a like, hitting subscribe, helps out more than you can imagine, and peace out, everybody.